What's exactly? I think I got out of there. I was in it for a week, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, they had a debate, so that was
That is a good shot.
just that's.
We'll call the Willmar City Council meeting for Monday, October 17th to order. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Christensen. Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Amon.
Aye. Here.
Nelson. Here. Meske.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
And Councilmember Christensen did ask to be excused. He did call the city administrator, so he'll be excused from the meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. There were no items removed from the consent agenda. Next, we'll have a presentation on the Y project, be an update from MnDOT and the partners, and Public Works Director Christensen will introduce the subject.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. With us tonight for an update on the Willmar Y bypass project with MnDOT is Gene East, and he'll go through a short presentation and maybe introduce some others in the audience as well. So here's Gene.
Thank you. Mr. East? I know you've been going around doing this presentation across the city and county. I know tomorrow morning you're going to the county board, and then tomorrow afternoon at 5 p.m. out at MnDOT, you also have a public open house.
Yes, sir.
On the issue. So I'm sure you'll be talking about that, but we'll introduce it at the beginning, and we'll get 2 chances to plug it that way.
Yes, yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yes, indeed, that will be on part of our discussion tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Again, my name is Gene East. I'm with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, District 8 office here in Willmar. I am the Assistant Project Manager for the project. On this event, this occasion, I am also the spokesperson for the project. On behalf of MnDOT, project partners, our project manager, Paul Rasmussen here, thanks for the opportunity to come before the council and talk about the project. We appreciate the opportunity and appreciate your time. For tonight's agenda, I'm going to present a brief project summary, a review for this audience for the most part. We'll talk a little on the layout alternatives, public engagement, project schedule, project status, upcoming major milestones, and hopefully time for questions and answers. I'll reserve that time for questions and answers, yet if there are questions as I go, please don't hesitate to stop me for a moment and we will address those, or if you'd prefer to hang on to those till the end of the discussion, that would be fine too. So, from the top, this is a review for this audience, obviously. It's a basic project summary, but there's some key points here that are worth noting. The title of the project is the Willmar Rail Connector and Industrial Park Access Project, the Willmar Y project. And in that title, in that name, there are 3 key things, I guess, that I'd like to point out for today. The Willmar Y, of course, is a reference to the Y configuration of the rail that comes into Willmar. 2 legs, west, southwest, and northwest, and out east. That's the Y that causes some problems for us. It's an inefficient move for rail cars that want to go from those westerly legs. It requires them to come into Willmar in the yard and switch directions and go out. And the project itself then is a connection. That direct connection is an effort to, of course, reduce that movement. And in doing that connection, that rail connector for the Y, we improve and create an improved access to Willmar's industrial park. So that long title with the Willmar Y does say a lot about the project. Again, this list of project partners and contributors is not new to this audience, but again, it has some implied values that I want to talk about briefly. Of course, you're familiar with the BNSF Railroad, MnDOT, USDOT. In this case, that USDOT is both the Federal Rail Administration and Federal Highway Administration. Local Road Improvement Program is a funding source only. Candioi County, this body, City of Willmar, and the Candioi County, Willmar, and Willmar Economic Development Commission. What's not obvious from that list, again, is the very roles that we have in that group. All of those parties listed there are financial contributors, of course. That's the funding stream for the project. Within that list, there's a core group that I call the project development team, project development group, MnDOT, City, County, and the rails primarily. In that group is also some regulatory roles. Both the Federal Rail Administration and Federal Highway and MnDOT have regulatory roles on that, from that list, and MnDOT as the lead agency. So, a familiar list, the roles are key. I'd like to turn to the alternatives that are currently being looked at for the project. And before I start the discussion on those alternatives, I'll refer to you in your packet, in your handout, if you care to look closer, the last sheets are a little more detailed maps of these three alternatives that we'll discuss. The overhead is not bad, but a little more detail on those pages if you prefer. We'll talk about three primary alternatives that are being weighed for the project. There have been many sub-alternatives and variations, but these are the three key alternatives. Again, before I move into any of the individual alternatives, of these, there are some consistencies. On all three alternatives, for instance, the rail line that you see on each and every one of the alternatives is in the same place. The rail has found its, I sometimes refer to it as its sweet spot. It misses our airport landing zones, height restriction zones. It provides the access to the industrial park. It also is an optimum route distance for the BNSF to make that movement. Second consistency through each of these alternatives we'll look at is Trunk Highway 40. Trunk Highway 40 is over the rail in all of the alternatives. So in essence, the rail is consistent throughout, and Trunk Highway 40, or in essence the southerly half of the project, is consistent throughout all the alternatives. So with that, I'll start with Alternative 1. Alternative 1, we've highlighted three key areas for this particular slide. Highway 12 stays on its existing alignment, just as it is today. In order to move the rail from the north side of Highway 12 across to the south, it results in a long skewed bridge. That skewed bridge is a terminology for a very shallow angle. It results in a long bridge and a very shallow angle. They're nearly parallel, of course. They're parallel alignments as we look west. It also results due to right-of-way constrictions, narrow right-of-way, area next to the railroad and next to businesses adjacent to Highway 12. It also results in Highway 12 would be constructed on top of a retaining wall. We sometimes refer to it being on top of walls. It would be a quite high retaining wall, 30 feet perhaps, on 3 of 4 legs of the new bridge. Alternative 1. Alternative 2 is distinctly different. Alternative 2 is a realignment of Trunk Highway 12. It shifts Highway 12 off of its existing alignment out near these storage facilities out west, and then turns east again toward Willmar. It crosses the new rail line perpendicular. It results in a much shorter, much simpler, a very typical bridge, we refer to it. And it eliminates the need for the high retaining walls and the high fill that are associated with Alternative 1. Alternative 2, and in your handout you'll see this is referenced as 2A. It began its life as Alternative 2. In Alternative 2, it also included, and you'll see, if I can point here. You'll see at this point right here, I'm circling there, that is an at-grade crossing of current First Avenue or County Road 55. So that's reference to this fourth bullet. That's alternative 2. Alternative 2 was that crossing was deemed to have some safety concerns, which resulted in this becoming 2A. And 2B, then, the third of the 3 alternatives we have in front of us today. And alternative 2B, you'll note, again, the southerly half is all the same. Highway 12, the first 3 bullets here on our handout are the same. What has changed, however, is this crossing of the rail is no longer there, but we have a new access road. Again, these 2 final bullets of the slide. Closing of this rail crossing, and the new access road down to proposed Highway 12. For reference, again, alternatives 2. I'm glad that's not for me. Alternative 2 starts out near the storage facilities and comes back. This is Hawk Creek and Viking Coca-Cola. This intersection is approximately 600 feet south of the current Highway 12 and County Road 5. This is County Road 5, about 600 feet south. The rail line is approximately 600 feet due east and parallel to County Road 55. Alternative 2B is the third alternative for our discussion. I want to turn to the public engagement process that we're engaged in right now. This meeting is one of those. You'll see we have open houses noted at the top. Mayor Calvin mentioned that we have one planned for October, and we'll talk a bit more about that on a later slide. We have community presentations, various groups, including city and county, our government partners in the project. Focus groups, law enforcement, fire, EMS, emergency responders. Those are works in progress yet. We don't have those established just yet, but we intend to get to those focus groups. Freight haulers as well, Highway 12 being a key freight route. Pop-up events, those include, we refer to those at, we have shown up at little notice at the YMCA, County Fair, and topics like that just kind of popped up with a table and targeted meetings with some special targeted groups that we don't see at our other types of meetings that we're working on those as well, works in progress. And the final bullet on there is a public hearing, and that's sort of a culmination of the first wave of public engagement. And we'll talk more about that again in a moment. We get to a little more detail on the schedule. Excuse me. This schedule right now, this is a really high-level look, and there's not a lot of detail here, but it's got some key points that I want to bring to your attention, and we'll talk a little more detail on later slides. But one of the things I'd like to lift up for you here is the we are in this phase, this preliminary design and environmental review phase right now. We're working on those efforts, and we're very busy with those. And we'll talk more about those individual pieces. Tiers 2 and 3 on this handout, on this slide rather, they show an overlap of the design and the construction. And that's a non-typical thing. Typical of most projects, particularly transportation projects, is we design 100% and then we bid and then we start our construction after that. This project is using what we call design build, which the overlap of those design and construction pieces tells the story. We're going to let a single letting that will be a design build team that will begin the design and start early stages of construction as soon as possible. It will be under their control to determine when they start construction. Design build is an effort to accelerate a project. Its intent is quicker movement. So that's a key note from that slide. Also, what is an apparent gap in our public engagement is not truly a gap, but it's a less intensive period of public engagement. Right now, through our environmental process and pre-design work, we're out, witness this, and then again, when we get closer to construction, we'll be back out a little more intensively at this point. So that gap is not gone, not forgotten, but just not quite as prevalent. Project status for today. We have the draft, the EA, maybe I'll spend a moment on that. EA is environmental assessment. It's the federal document that basically lays the groundwork for the project. It's a decision-making tool and a decision-making document. And that has been submitted to our partners, including our city staff, and it's been reviewed, and we've taken comments. Those comments and are now brought back to MnDOT and our consultants for review, and the environmental assessment's being updated. In that's where we are today, in fact. We're working on those comments, revising the environmental assessment document. Our layout, which is the geometric portion of the project, that's a work in progress. We are continuing to refine that. We'll be meeting with city and county staff later this week, in fact, to talk about some of the local road connections and the local road details, and starting to refine that as well as the trunk highway and the rail. The third bullet there is the open house that Mayor Calvin mentioned earlier, and that is scheduled for tomorrow from 5 until 7 p.m. at the MnDOT office here in Willmar. This group is more than welcome. We would encourage to have you attend, as well as any audience members that we would love to have more folks there. You have a chance to learn about the project and provide input to us. And the final bullet there is that we are in the heart of a serious effort with our public engagement pieces. We've been out quite a bit speaking to groups like yourselves. So it's a busy time, very busy time for us. Upcoming and major milestones, I'll try to touch on these briefly. The first few there are most specifically about that environmental assessment document and the layout that I just touched on. We hope to have the layout, a solid draft of the layout wrapped up by the end of November. We hope to submit the draft environmental assessment to our federal partners early in November for review. They have a 30-day review period they've requested to vet the environmental assessment document. And then we anticipate that EA will then become open to public comment beginning early to mid-January. And the public hearing then, which is the official hearing of that approved environmental assessment in late January, a midpoint of the public review period. And then the later milestones there are more general. Spring of 2017, we'll be back with your staff talking about the municipal consent for the project. We have an impact on the city. We'll be part of that discussion, of course, and reviewing the layout and cost estimates. Agreements refers to many agreements needed with the many partners. We have typical highway agreements as well as many very unusual for the right-of-way transactions and a private partner, et cetera. Many agreements involved. Design build letting targeted for November of 2017, start of construction spring of 2018, and project completion fall of 2020 is the target. With that, we would be glad to entertain any questions you may have of myself or...
Okay, Council, do you have any questions? Councilmember Amon, followed by Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks for coming back again and reviewing this project. I think you're doing a great job of getting this out to the public. Your forums and your openness is really needed, and it shows you're doing a good job, and I appreciate that very much. I'm sure the people do also. As far as farm service elevator, I know there were some concerns there. Could you just update us on what alternative is best going to meet their needs based on their complaint?
Yeah, Farm Service Elevator is one of the businesses on First Avenue, and the closing of the potential First Avenue crossing, they would be one of the businesses that would have one of the greatest impacts. From the earliest times that the possibility of closing that crossing has come up, we've visited, our project manager, Paul Rasmussen, has spent a considerable amount of time talking with the Farm Service Elevator staff and people, and they have helped us work through some of the alternatives. What you see in Alternative 2B is to some degree a cooperative effort with Farm Service. So they've been at the table. Truthfully, I'm certain it's not their ideal situation. I'm quite certain of that. But they've been involved, and we've been involved and at the table with us consistently through the discussions.
Do you,
Councilmember Andrew, I'm sorry.
well, one other question, as far as Hawk Creek, that's probably one of the largest obstacles as far as the environmental impact statement, isn't it, or part of that process with the watershed?
It is, yes. The Hot Creek is both a judicial ditch and a creek in a normal watershed terms, but it is, I will say surprisingly, a concern or an issue that we will be able to mitigate very well. It is not a major environmental stumbling block.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for being here tonight. It's good to get the update. Kind of a follow-up on Councilmember Amon's first question. When you say that you're going to have the layout finalized, hopefully the end of November, does that mean that you're selecting option 1, 2A, or 2B, or when will that decision be made?
To put an absolute decision, as in no turning back, that would probably be much later. That ends with what is, in our terminology, the finding of no significant impact, okay? Through the environmental assessment process, there are opportunities, yet in fact, to have input on the alternatives and the project. There are opportunities yet. As you might expect, as the project develops and as time goes by, it becomes more difficult and it introduces more risk to the project if we should have to back up, to be honest. At this point, based on early analysis done with the First Avenue crossing, the safety and cost analysis that's been done, and federal guidance that our FRA and FHWA partners have brought to the table, there is I hesitate to use the word decision, but there is indeed a decision to not allow that crossing. So that would entail then that alternate 2B is surfacing as the recommended alternative. At this point in our process, we consider alternative 2B as the staff recommended alternative that's going into the environmental assessment.
Thanks.
Additional questions? Okay. I did have a conversation with Mr. Heisinga this morning and asked him if you guys had any updates, and you guys have been corresponding with him regularly, so thank you for doing that and keeping them in the loop on what's going on there. So that's a very important piece to their operation, and as I stated at our meeting with the Chamber, to impact of $375,000 a year to that business. And it affects, I believe, what are they talking, maybe about 60,000 truck traffic loads a year. So that is something, and this is nothing new. I'm not telling you something you haven't heard before. I've been at the table on this issue from the very beginning. And I did talk with Mr. Rasmussen, and really, I thought that when we got to option 2B, I thought we had a solution, because that's one of the things that I talked to Mr. Rasmussen about, and I was very pleased to see that come to the table. And then all of a sudden, we seen that was still a conflict. So, you guys are doing great work. Keep up the good work. And if there's anything we can do to help, let us know. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
You bet. Thank you for your work.
I would extend an offer that if we may help you, we would be more than happy to do so.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. So next we have the Willmar City Council Open Forum. Lauren Schultz. Lauren, if you can hold just a minute. Do you have a timekeeping device? Okay, go ahead, Lauren.
Lauren Schultz, 901 Irene Avenue, Southeast. On the Y, on the west end here, where it hooks onto Highway 12, that's all low meander land in there. Are you going to purchase that for water holding capacity. We have all these businesses here that we need to have water holding capacity for, plus the railroad and the road. There's no place to put it. I had to take the biggest dam out north of Candio High. I had 14 on one farm, and I had to take the biggest one out. All that water comes to Willmar from Candio High. There's no place to put it unless we do something different. I have to keep up with all the building that's going on in town, out of town, wherever you're pouring cement, tar, concrete, building a house, anything, because you're over your head in it. We have to do something. There's plenty of room to work with, plenty of landowners to work with. Never used a CP39 on the Hawk Creek watershed that's been in force since 2008. Crow River Watershed District been using it since 2008 and funding it. That's why we're underwater. You got two pumps going, your old sewer pump, your new sewer pump, and all that wall of water going that way. And by nature, that was supposed to go that way. But you're so far over your head that way, they start pumping it that way. All them tile lines back up. I've tiled north of town, all went right in here. Eagles Landing, 1 foot diameter, a lot of fall. The road north to the radio station. Been no fix. And when that gets to Don Knott's wetland, it's 5 feet over the dike. Kills every living thing on 200 acres every time it happens. That was wildlife habitat. Now we got nothing. They didn't excavate the dirt out of it, so it don't hold as many cubic yards of water. It's got all the silt coming in, but no water holding capacity.
Thank you. Next, we have a proclamation of Family Promise Week. Staff, could you, Public Works Director Christensen, could you follow up on that, the cleaning out the Knott's wildlife area, just see if the city has any responsibility to do that?
I'll look into it.
Thank you. Next, we have proclamation of Family Promise Week. And I will read the proclamation, and then Mr. Wayne Nelson is here, and he'd like to make some comments after that. So, proclamation from the City of Willmar. Whereas in August 2015, Family Promise of Candioi County began operations dedicated to helping the most vulnerable among us, children and families who are temporarily homeless. Whereas Family Promise supports numerous congregations of our area's faith community, which provides the facilities to house and feed guest families, thereby making a real difference in the lives of their neighbors in need. And whereas believing that every child deserves a home, Family Promise of Candioi County and its more than 450 volunteers empower families to making their transition from homelessness to sustainable independence. And whereas over the past year, Family Promise of Candioi County has graduated at least 8 families into secure, affordable housing with a success rate of 100%. Now therefore, I, Marv Calvin, Mayor for the City of Willmar, do hereby proclaim the week of October 16th, 2016 as Family Promise Week. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the City of Willmar this 3rd day of October 2016, and I have signed it. So, Mr. Nelson, if you would like to come. I do have the proclamation. It's at City Hall, and I apologize I didn't get it brought with me, so my mistake, and we'll have it ready for you tomorrow morning at City Hall, so you stop back and pick it
No problem.
stop by and pick it up then if you would.
We appreciate your recognizing Family Promise for the work it's done over the last 15 months. And currently, we are housing 3 families in our program, and very proud of the success rate. I apologize for our director, Chris Castellea, and our case manager, Heidi Coles, for not being here tonight, but they had family issues with conferences for their school-age children. So otherwise, they would be here accepting this because they're the ones that are doing the yeoman's work and helping relieve homelessness in the county. And we have a great collaborative effort with the 11 congregations and 11 congregations that are host churches and 8 congregations that are support churches, providing volunteers, as been outlined in the proclamation. That volunteer time is worth over $500,000 to our organization because of the time and effort that these people put in to help us have a successful program. In addition, we have collaborative efforts with referral agencies and the Kansas County Family Services, Heartland Agency, and Salvation Army being our primary referral agencies, as well as having individuals come directly to us. So we are working hard to help break the chain of homelessness in Kansas County, and we thank you for recognizing us.
Thank you. Does anybody on the council have a question for Mr. Nelson? Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do, and you're doing good work, and I know that this is an issue that surfaced for me back in probably the early 2000s, and when a lot of people were saying there's no homelessness in Willmar, along with the police department, we've seen it on a regular basis. And so thank you for addressing that need within our community. I didn't realize it was a $500,000 impact on your volunteer hours. That's a tremendous sacrifice and donation to our community, so thank you for your work. Appreciate that. Next, we have a consideration of quarterly acknowledgement of donations. Finance Director Okens, are you handling that?
Again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, included in your packet and per city council policy is a list of donations that the city has received for the third quarter of 2016. Per state statute, the council needs to accept these donations by resolution, and so staff's recommendation is to pass the resolution in your packet, accepting them for the various items and purposes listed.
Thank you. And then in the transition of time, have we made sure, or will we make sure that the acknowledgement letters go out?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the city policy is to send acknowledgements and thank you letters at the time of receipt.
Thank you. Council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the quarterly acknowledgement of donations. Discussion. Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'm going to read these because I think they're important to let people know who these donations are from. I will not list their dollar amounts, but Carlson Construction, Humane Society of Kansas County, Kansas and Meeker County, Eric Banks, Presbyterian Family Foundation, Doug Fenstra, Fisher Laser Eye Center, Allergy and Asthma Specialty Clinic, Walmart, American Welding and Gas, Bolin Fenstra Chiropractic, I think I killed her name there, sorry, Waltz, Viking Coca-Cola, Pro Color Graphics, Willmar Area CVB, Genio Turkey Stores, Fiesta Time Rentals, and Willmar Community Ed and Rec. And the total donations, I just hit the wrong button. I don't see a total on them.
It isn't.
Okay, so there is no total, but it's a substantial donation, well in excess of $20,000 that have been given here. The largest of those donations is Humane Society of Kansas and Meeker County in the amount of $15,000 for water access for our dog park here in town. So, roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Next is consideration of Agricultural land exemption of special assessments. City Clerk Thompson.
It's a policy of the city to temporarily exempt from assessment certain lands currently used for agricultural purposes. Each year, contact is made with listed landowners to ascertain their desire to place the land in agricultural use for the 2017 crop year. Before you is a resolution listing the property owners who have made application for agricultural land exemptions and have met the criteria contained in the city's comprehensive assessment policy. I'm recommending the council approve the exemptions for qualifying agricultural landowners of special assessments as presented for 2017 in the amount of $628,150.07.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the deferred collection of ag land exemptions. Council? Councilmember Amon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ongoing issue that Mr. Okins and the Finance Department, I'm sure, and we all wrestled with for years. I believe the last time we reviewed this policy was, 4 or 2 years ago, Mr. Okins?
Finance Director Okins?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Amon, the assessment policy and the ag deferment is included in that, is reviewed every couple of years.
I guess my question, Mr. Okins, if I could, the Mayor and Council, is if we could maybe take a look at this again. When you look at the ongoing cost of operating our city and the deferred assessments, I wonder if maybe we should not be a little more collectible on part of this ag deferment. And I'm not sure how that interferes with state law as far as what we can and can't do, but I'm just curious, maybe the council shouldn't reconsider the costs that the city is bearing for these improvements for quite a few numbers of years. And I just will leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. If it could go to committee at finance, that would be great.
So you're asking this to be tabled, to be taken back to finance for further discussion, or?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm not asking to table. I didn't make a motion to that effect. All I'm
No,
just making my
just
statement
asking.
is that I would like to see this come back to finance, not this particular issue, but the issue in tax deferment on agricultural land to be discussed at one of the upcoming finance meetings. I just wanted to make that comment, and hopefully that'll be put on the agenda. I just thought it might be the appropriate time to bring it up.
Additional discussion? Councilmember Nelson?
Just a question, are these all the same as they were last year, or do we have some new properties?
They are all the same.
City Clerk Thompson?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor and Council. They are all the same as we've had in the past. We did remove Hawkinson, part of Hawkinson, because that was purchased for the new elementary school. And there was an addition of Erickson property at the end. Should be the last one listed.
When did the council originally take action on this to put this into ag deferred, this policy? Kind of following up a little bit on what Councilman Amon said. Do we know when that was? I mean, it's been there a long time, right?
Yes, I could not answer that. I don't know if any of the department directors would remember when that actually took effect.
Okay. Okay. Councilmember Nelson?
From a time standpoint, do we need to take action on it tonight, or could it go before finance to be reviewed this year?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
City Clerk Thompson?
These do have to be certified by November 15th to the county auditor to get, on the tax rolls for payable 2017 taxes.
So we would have one more meeting that it could get talked about. Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a two-part issue. I mean, we have to certify these, then we need to decide on policy for future years. So and I think it's great that it would come before finance. We've got, I don't know if it'll come this year, but it needs to, if not this year, shortly after the first of the year, so that we have this in place for whatever the deadlines are for spring. So anyway, I see it as a two-part thing. I think we go ahead and approve this and then put it on the agenda.
Any additional questions? Roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Next is consideration of Oswald Meadows assessment settlement and set hearing. This is an item that was referred to staff at our last council meeting, and so I believe we have an update coming to us from our city administrator, Mr. McGuire.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, the mayor's correct. At the last meeting, staff was directed to meet with the two property owners and try and work out a compromise. The finance director and I did meet with Mr. Cram and Mr. Schmitz, and our recommendation is to kind of split the difference between the two, cut the assessment in half, which would be $1,162.88. They both have two lots, so their total assessment would be $2,325.76. And we recommend that they would sign a waiver, which would not require a hearing. And then, if you want to move on this first, and then there's another part to this also. Any questions?
Council?
Also move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to have a settlement agreement between Mr. Cram and Mr. Schmitz, or the Cram family and the Schmitz family, in the amount of $1,162.88 per parcel, for a total of $23,2576 for each of the affected families. Discussion. Councilmember Maskey.
Have we made any assurances that we won't be in this position again? Have we corrected anything that maybe the city had done?
Mr. McGuire has been working on that. So, Mr. McGuire, if you could share with the council what you've done to prevent this from happening in the future.
Yes. In the future, all assessment requests or information searches will go through the city clerk, which had been the policy, but evidently it may not have been followed. We're not sure about that, but at least it was a misunderstanding on it, and they'll be in writing.
Awesome. Great.
Additional discussion? Okay, so my understanding is that this would be a resolution, this piece?
This part is a resolution, correct?
Correct. Okay. So additional discussion, otherwise I'm ready to vote. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Mr. McGuire.
Thank you, Mayor. The second part is to set a hearing for 701 on November 7th, 2016 for the Oslo Meadow Special Assessments, and that's simply a motion.
I'll introduce the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to set a public hearing for 7:01 PM on November 7th. Discussion. Councilmember Anderson.
What is that for? I mean, I'm a little bit confused what that's about.
That's for one of the other, Mayor, council members, that's for one of the other property owners who did not appeal, Mr. Javaharian.
Okay.
But the other two, the Krams and Schmitz, are not involved in the public.
Okay.
Because we left the hearing open and then asked him to settle, if he could, and bring back a recommendation to us, then that left it open, so we still have to go forward and get it closed.
Okay.
Additional discussion? Those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry. Next, we have an update from the Destination Playground, and I see we have two people here to talk with us in regards to that, actually three. Now I see Mitra back there. So if you guys would like to come forward, and the council has been given the handout, although it's not in color, so I'm certainly hoping that we've got it in color for our public. This is a tremendous project that has really gotten great legs, so
Thank you.
it's a lot of fun.
We have a special helper tonight.
All right, who's our helper?
This is Adeline.
Hi, Adeline, how are you? A member
She's
of
on
the
our Children's Committee with the
Excellent.
Destination Playground.
Thank you.
Good evening,
you
Mayor
very
Calvin,
much.
members of the council. My name is Rachel Skretfit. I am co-chair of the Destination Playground. With me tonight is Mitra Ingen. She is our Special Features Chair, along with her daughter. Kathy Schwantes, my co-chair, and Dave Baker, who is the fundraising captain, couldn't be here tonight. So they had work obligations, so you get me. The purpose of tonight is to give you a quick update of what we've been up to. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them best I can. Oh, thank you so much. See if our PowerPoint is up and running. Awesome.
You could otherwise give him the high sign and he can advance it for you.
Yeah, there we go. Well, tonight, first we want to update you as our fundraising efforts. I'm sure you've read the paper lately. We've had a great past couple of weeks. We are successful to say that we're at $675,000, and we are almost to our goal. We're very thankful for the generous amount of support we have received thus far, but we still need to reach our goal by February. And that is also when we hope to finalize fundraising and with the playground design. Right now, our purpose is to fine-tune that playground design. You have a copy in front of you from design day of where we started. What we're doing right now is just tweaking some of those components. For example, this component that you see right in front of you on the screen is called an expression swing. It's become quite popular with people. We've gotten a lot of people emailing us on this, and we've seen it popular in other communities. We only had one in our initial design, but we'd like to have two, so we don't have to have people waiting in line to kind of help with this type of thing at the playground. Some other various things that you can see on your pamphlet in front of you. You want to hit it? This is a zip line. This is a nice amenity because it has a feature for a chair for anyone with special needs, and then the child next to it on the zip line with a saucer seat. I don't know if it's just the remote there. This is just a tree fort. We got about three different types of twisty slides, straight slides, coming any way which from it. This is part of our music area right when you come into the playground. If you look on your map, right next to the snow fort area, we'll have different types of music components along with a sensory wall. This is called a merry-go-round. It's flush with the rubberized flooring just so we can have it handicap accessible for anyone who needs it. Also, any kids of all abilities, as you can see, are using it. This is just to show all the various things. The spider bouncers right there in the center up high. We got monkey bars. We'll have a wheelchair, handicap accessible wheelchair swing. One in the corner, the merry-go-round again, and then there's a tractor component in the tot area. This is going to probably be a hot deal around just like the expression string. This is called a spider bouncer. So kids can climb around the sides and bounce in the center. This is part of the Climinator. What kids are really wanting from design day is kind of like Mitra said, American Ninja Warrior. They want an obstacle course. They want to run around and get worked out. So the bigger component areas of the playground will do it. We have a tot area that's purpose is for ages 2 to 5, and then we have a playground area that's going to be for ages 5 to 12. These areas over here is serving the 5 to 12. This is called a wee saw. It's a 4-person teeter-totter which serves both kids and adults. I'm not sure if you've ever been to the park with your children or grandchildren, but it's not fun when I'm the biggest one trying to do a teeter-totter with them. So this will be a way to kind of help do that. This is a train area. This will be in the Todd area. We'll have different things. That Todd area is going to have an egg theme. So we'll even have animal spring bouncers that animals can ride. We'll have corn or strawberry hoppers for the kids to walk on for balance, just like here. And here's a map of our master park plan as well. With that, we've been working with Public Works and Sean Christensen, getting the site prep ready for this fall before the ground freezes. This is beneficial for us because then we have to be ready for the spring prep that we need to do as well. So these things that we're doing right now for fall prep will be hauling gravel, working on drainage, electrical and water lines that might be in the way of where the playground is at. We're hoping this work can be completed by the beginning of December. Also with that, we'd like to make the public aware is we've set our build dates. We are looking at May 18th through the 26th, so we're hoping that everyone can put that on their calendars. These are going to be busy times for us. We need 150 volunteers a day in order to get this build done in 7 to 10 days. There's going to be really a job for everybody, no matter what your ability is, so please let us know if you're willing to help out. You can go to our website at willmarplayground.com, or you can contact somebody that you might know from one of the committees. With that, I'll just open it up for any questions you might have for this update, but otherwise, we're well on our way. I don't think. Just as an update too, I think you guys know that Friends of Robbins Island has their community fund set up already at Willmar Community Foundation. So if anyone's wanting to make any donations, they are our host, our fiscal host, and they can do that by either donating to the Community Ed, or Willmar Community Ed Foundation website or the willmarplayground.com website. That's it.
Okay, council, questions? Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you and your committee, you folks are wonderful. You have done a tremendous job to see where you're at already for this fundraising and the planning. I mean, it really shows what can happen when community gets together.
Thank you.
You folks have done a wonderful job. One question on the fundraising, will that become more public as you want individual donors to step forward, or what? How's that going to work?
That is correct. Right now, the push has obviously been our businesses for supporter. Individuals can donate right now as well. A great thing happened also at the Willmar Area Community Foundation where they said they will donate up to $50,000 of match funds for anyone from the community. So if yourself, Mr. Anderson, wanted to donate right now, you can go on the website, and if he donated, then that would be a match up to $50,000 that we would get. So a potential we could get is $100,000 right there from the foundation. Also, we hope to be launching ticket sales coming up soon, so people can look for more information on that, hopefully within the next couple weeks. We're going to have a picket fence around the playground, just very much like Spicer Park. And people can personalize it by putting their name. It can say the Anderson family on it, but those won't be ready for sale yet for a couple of weeks, but that's where we hope to get the community involved.
Okay.
Along with picnic tables, high top tables, benches. There'll be wonderful opportunities to donate there too.
Watching this group, you'll get there and you'll exceed your goal.
We will. Thank you
Well
so much
done.
for your support on that.
Additional questions? Well, I've been involved in this a little bit, and
Just a
so
little.
I'd be amiss if I didn't make a couple comments. So first off, Dave Baker, owner of 3 businesses here in town, is doing a phenomenal job on spearheading this project. When he first came to me with this idea and said that he wanted to put this together and really look at, could we do something like this out at Robbins Island? And I talked with our community ed and rec director, Steve Brizendine, and said, can we get this done? And I asked him what the budget was, and as you remember, our park plan calls for a $200,000 playground. And so I got back with Dave and I said, Dave, I think we can make this happen. I said, we're looking at about $200,000. He goes, Marv, you're not looking at the same thing I'm looking. He said, I'm looking at $800,000. I said to him, $800,000? Where are you going to get $800,000? And so imagine my surprise when I was at the Willmar Area Community Foundation dinner, and the announcement came out that we had a $500,000 company that made a donation to our community for this. And then also, there were some additional donations that came out. I think some of those are public. I think
Yes,
the one from
ACMC that
is
night also
public.
announced that they gave us $20,000 as well that night. So it was a big night for us. So
Right.
we hope to continue that momentum on through February is when we hope to wrap things up with fundraising efforts and also with the playground design. And that's when we'd like, as a committee, to come back to the council with that update in February. And because then the next step come March would be organization day that we have with Leathers and Associates coming back for another site visit to get ready for our April prep for work to be done come May.
Exactly. And I think we've raised a little over 10,000 on the match so far.
That is correct. With that match that the mayor is talking about, we've raised $10,000 in the last 2 weeks.
So again, you can go to Willmar,
Playground.com.
Yep, Friends of Robbins Island at Willmar Area Community Foundation and make your donation there if you choose. They also are serving as the fiscal host for that site. And again, I know Dave wasn't able to be here. We were emailing back and forth this morning. Started on Thursday when I talked to Mr. McGuire, and he goes, "Marv, are they going to be there?" And I said, "I think they are, but I got to double check." And so those emails started on Thursday, and man, I don't want to count how many emails went back and forth between emails and texts. I'm sure we're well over 50 that went back and forth. And he was hoping to be here. He had a presentation down in Montevideo, so he wasn't able to be here. But again, to you and your committee, Mitra, you and your daughter, thank you for your good work. I remember on design day, you were there working hard and out at Robbins Island at the Rockin' Robbins event. I remember your smiling face there. So this is for our kids, folks. This is what's going to be for our kids. And the great thing is that the goal is not to have any public dollars go into this.
That's
And
correct.
so it's a $800,000 donation that will be given to our community. And as council, we all know that we accepted the responsibility to keep that up. And Gary Manzer has been attending those along with Mr. Christensen and others, but has been attending those meetings and have provided great input as to the care and maintenance to make it as friendly as it can be. And I know that recommendation came out off of this board or off of this council to make sure we work with our public works staff and make it as good as can be. So
And we
and I think it's
really-
right about 800 pickets they're talking.
Yes, we need about 800 pickets to go around this almost 20,000 square foot playground. So we need at about $75 a piece, 800 pickets to go around. And then some benches will be inside that playground as well.
Exactly. And then the high tops concept was a concept that Dave brought up after the Rockin' Robbins event, where a lot of people were standing around at the Rockin' Robbins event. And he said, man, this is a great thing. We should do this for the playground as well. So Dave's had a lot of input from the very beginning, and he continues to work on it very diligently. So
That is
if
correct.
you would thank him, as I will, but thank him for his hard work.
I
And
certainly
thank you
will.
for being here.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything from the council? Okay. Sounds excellent.
Thank
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have an announcement of committee meeting dates. Finance.
Finance will meet Monday, the 24th at 4:45. And if I could just add, this afternoon, I think you all got emails from Janelle. We need to reschedule the finance full council session that we had scheduled for November 16th. And she gave us two alternative dates. Disregard the first email. Those had the wrong dates. The second email, dates of November 9th or November 15th. So if you can get back to Janelle on that so we can get that scheduled.
If I can suspend us just for a minute, Dave Baker just showed up. I just seen him pop his head in. So Dave, if you can hear us. If you want to make a couple comments, we're just going to committee meeting dates, but if you want to make a couple comments, otherwise your team did a great job. They hit a home run.
Thank you. No, I'm sure they did a good job.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Public Works, Public Safety. Do we know if we have a meeting?
Mayor, members of council, at this time, I would plan on one November 1st, 4:45.
November 1st at 4:45. Labor?
No meeting is scheduled today, but I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, would you be so kind as to introduce our Human Relations person?
Good idea.
It's
Since
on,
we're on the issue of labor.
Yep.
We have
go
a
ahead,
meeting.
go ahead.
Yeah, you're the mayor, Mr. Mayor. Go right ahead. I wouldn't want to mispronounce her name.
Oh, you're going to let me do it?
Yes.
So tonight we have with us, and I don't, Mr. McGuire, if you want to do it or if you want me to do it.
Go ahead.
We're all trying to dodge your name, you know. We're afraid of this really difficult name, Bridget Buckingham. Is in the palace, right, exactly. And if you've been to City Hall, the former clerk's office has been turned into a palace, so it really looks great in there. So Bridget, welcome aboard. We're very glad you're with us. Tonight is your first council meeting of many. We're looking for your leadership and vision as we move the city forward. And in the area of help me with this. Personnel. With the personnel issues. We got a name for her, don't we? Human Resources Director. So I didn't have any trouble with her name, but her position I did, so. Okay, was that a setup? Anyways, Human Resources Director, Bridget Buckingham, so welcome aboard. So.
Very honored to be here, and I'm very happy to work with everybody. It's been a warm welcome, and I'm excited to begin.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for being here. Community Development.
No meeting plan.
Okay, with that, we have nothing else to come before the council.
Move to adjourn.
Councilmember Amon.
Could I comment a few minutes and take a moment of time regarding Lauren Schultz's comments on the stormwater issue? It'd be appropriate. I'd like to make a motion.
You make a motion for what?
Well, Lauren Schultz has been here since 2008 talking to us every time after we've had these storm issues. And it's not just the city of Willmar, and we can't really fault any individual or any staff people or any community group for what's happened, or government in this particular case, other than we had too much rain. There seems to be a lot of angst in the community, and I would like to get it off dead center by maybe having a discussion with the help of the council and the township boards and the county commissioners to look at the overall watershed district again along the soil and water divisions of this county, get input from the agricultural people in this community, and because it will have an impact on them. And finally, maybe try to put up some type of plan to see how we're going to address not just the city of Willmar, but the entire area. As I see this county growing, we're a regional community, and to be a regional community, we should be prepared. And I know that it's going to cost dollars, and I just think that if we would get all our minds together and at least start the open communication process, it would be a step forward to showing the taxpayers in our community that we're trying to resolve some of these issues, and I think it would be a positive thing for the community. And Mr. Mayor, I would move that we direct the city council to work with city staff and the city engineer to establish a group to start informal discussions on solutions and problems dealing with the watershed in this community and Candioi County collaboratively.
City Attorney Scott, can a council member direct a council to do something?
Council member can make a motion, and if the council passes it, then that would be the directive of the council.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Motion's been seconded. So will you read the motion back? Judy?
I would direct that to Mr. Amon. Is he?
You're going to make me go through all that again?
I'm
Just the
sorry,
motion.
I might miss a few words here.
Okay, what do you have so far? Nothing?
I have a part, but I would rather you
Okay.
just in your own words.
To work with our city engineer council to coordinate efforts to start informal discussions on how to resolve the stormwater and future planning of our stormwater system throughout Candioi County, in particular the city of Willmar.
I'm much more comfortable with that motion than I was the first. You understand that as the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and read it back to us. Somebody, either Mr. Scott or Ms. Thompson.
I can take a stab at it.
Please do.
As I understand it, the motion is to direct the council to work with city staff and the city engineer to work with coordinating efforts to start informal discussions with representatives of the county and the county's townships regarding stormwater management issues.
Is that pretty close?
That's close enough to get it off, to get it started.
Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
Do we not need to take a look at our own information first? It's in the minutes from the last meeting, and I think we just received emailed the information. I thought it was going back to Public Works to be reviewed, the study that Bolton and Mink did. Not opposed to doing this, but I think we need to review our own information and start with that before we sit down and meet with all the other entities.
And that was the reason for my concern, is because last meeting, we directed staff to get us information and then to bring it to Public Works, which hasn't happened yet. So it seems like we're putting motions on top of motions on top of motions, and not waiting for the original motions to be acted on. I'm not sure why we do that.
If you want to turn over the gavel to speak your opinion, I'd appreciate it, but I'd like to keep the motion going, please. And I understand your concerns, and I hate to interrupt, but I don't believe this has been long overdue for a long time, long overdue. And
Point of order, Ms. Nelson had the floor.
I would like to see it go back to Public Works. I'm not opposed if this comes out of Public Works, but I will make a motion to amend the motion to recommend that this be taken back to Public Works for discussion while we look at the information that was sent to us.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take the information back to Public Works. Discussion. Councilmember Amon, followed by Anderson.
we've talked about this. We've had the report for over 2 years. We had the bar report for over 4. We've had this information, we've read it, and I'm not faulting anybody, but somehow we have to get off dead center on this issue and start looking at hardcore, long-term solutions. As this county is growing, as the agricultural area is being drained, as more and more residences are being developed in agricultural land, and this county grows, we're going to be facing this continued shed of water that's going to come down to the bottom of the toilet, and that's the city of Willmar. We need to finally sit down and have a civil conversation to see how we're going to go about solving the problem. And I know we're all busy with our tasks and our responsibilities. What this commitment and this motion would do would simply get us off dead center and commit ourselves as a group, as a team, to show the community that we're trying to do the right thing. If it goes back to Public Works again, we're not solving the issue. We're only looking at the city of Willmar. We need joint collaboration, and it's long overdue. We have to solve and look forward as this county grows into how we're going to be dealing with the problem. And Mr. Schultz has many times offered this point, and I would like to speak against this amendment as it's being proposed, because it does nothing more than just wash it down again. Wash it down and delay it. And we've delayed this long enough.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The intent is not to delay this. I think it's more following the process that we've already put in place. And I would suspect that the Public Works Safety Committee would look at it and then probably suggest that we go to that whatever we want to call it, group that's going to get together. So it's not intended at all, in my opinion, to delay things at all. It's just trying to follow our process a little bit closer.
Are we ready to vote on the amendment? Somebody shoot me the amendment, please.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Member Nelson wanted to amend the motion to that she was recommending it go back to the Public Works Committee.
Okay. Those in favor of Councilmember Meske.
I don't, the original motion, this is an amendment to it. Is it to move the motion that was made by Councilmember Amon to the committee? as it was stated here. It is not to
I'm not
kick
sure
the
the-
whole concept down to committee. It is to move the motion to the committee. Is that correct?
I
I
made,
need to know.
Councilmember Nelson.
I made the amendment to recommend that we go back and look at the information we requested at last time's meeting, and then take a look at this particular item.
I guess my understanding is that, how is that an amendment to the motion? It seems like a totally different motion. but-
Would you like to give us a legal interpretation of, is the motion in order? Mr. Scott?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you had a motion to essentially set the policy of the council, which would be to start working with your staff to have some informal conversations with members of the county and the township. The motion to amend that motion essentially would be to refer it back to the committee, the Public Works Committee, for consideration of this motion at that committee, along with the additional information that staff has already been directed to bring to that committee. I believe that's a proper amendment.
There's our legal interpretation.
So the motion.
And you know me, I don't,
I'm well
you're
aware.
helping me regularly.
So, I mean, what we're doing is we're taking the amendment is to move the motion that was made by Councilmember Amon to the committee level to do it, so it's already being addressed of what the desire would be if it were to move forward.
Correct.
So,
That's my understanding.
okay.
Councilmember Amon.
I speak against the amendment again. 3 months ago, I asked if it was possible to get a report on what public plans we have in the city that could be storage retention funds. 3 months have gone by, and now we're just going to go back to committee and discuss the same problem that we already know we have. We're right here. If we do this, we can maybe get a couple of weeks head start before spring. Kicking this down the can another 2 weeks to talk about it isn't going to do any good, folks. Let's deal with the problem. We're right here, right now. Let's move it. We already can deal with the issues within the city. This is still a completely different concept, and that's to finally get all the voices together and work collaboratively. I think by this amendment, it destroys the intent, and what could happen is it could stay back in committee for another couple of months with no action being taken, with collaboration with the other counties and the other people that are affected by this watershed. I think it's a very simple motion. I think my original motion should stand on its own merit, and it shows a commitment from the community that we are going in the right direction.
Additional discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
My amendment was not to delay it. However, the Public Works Committee received this Bolton and Mink report several years ago and did nothing with it. We've asked staff to address this, and we've asked to be given time to look at that report again and to get recommendations from staff. I think that needs to come first as we look at this. I can see that we do need to do those things. It's not meant to delay it. It's meant to respect our staff, and we paid Bolton and Mink to do this report, and it was basically set on the shelf as the bar report was. It's time to take it off the shelf and look at it, and to trust our staff to make some recommendation. And then we can take the next step to work with other entities. But we first need to respect what we need to do.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a stormwater task force. They gave us recommendations. We didn't do anything with it.
What a piece of property.
Yeah. But I mean, we've been dealing with this since I got on the council in '92. I remember meeting out on Willmar Avenue overlooking Grass Lake, and they had senators from the cities and representatives, and they just laughed. You guys don't have any flooding issues, and nothing's been done. Now Grass Lake
It's getting done.
is getting done. So we should probably hear if that's actually going to help us, diverting the water from Plum Creek straight to Grass Lake instead of coming into Willmar. But I mean, we need to talk with the county officials because we're limited on where we can discharge our water. And that goes with other counties also. We had a meeting last Friday in Litchfield, and one of the county commissioners from was it Renville or?
Renville.
Yeah, he got a complaint by someone south of Lake Lillian that the water is all dirty and they're blaming Willmar. And our sewer plant doesn't even discharge over there. So something's going on and we need to talk with everyone. I remember when Genio wanted to discharge water on their own. And they couldn't get a permit from Renville County. Candy High County wouldn't allow them anyway, but we need to talk with other people.
Councilmember Johnson.
I guess my question would be, I mean, obviously, we do have water issues. There's no question about that. I think we all agree on that. But I guess kicking it around and directing that we have a group look at it, it seems to me that what we really are lacking here is some guidelines and parameters of when we get some feedback. You know, what are our objectives here? And they ought to be timed and measurable. And if we just refer it to staff, which apparently was done at Public Works, or maybe not, maybe I misspoke. I'm getting a signal from Councilmember Nelson.
They didn't meet.
Yeah, but,
They didn't meet last week.
yeah, but, I mean, it just seems to me that you can't just push this around and unless you have some requirement that somebody reports back to this body with their findings and with some recommendations. I mean, I don't know how you can get anything done if we just refer it to a group of people and don't give them any guidelines as to when they bring it back. Just an idea.
That was part of the reason why I questioned the initial motion. So, Councilmember Nelson.
We do need to do something, but I'll go back to the day that we received that Bolton and Mink report. The Stormwater Task Force was also at the table, and I believe their solution, one of the committee members recommended dynamite. Somehow I think we've got to get a little further than that, and we've got to start over. And that's why I'd like to go back to the staff and to look at the Bolton and Mink report and to put some constructive things in place to start to do something other than just leave the report sit on the shelf.
Councilmember Metzger.
I'd offer a friendly amendment to the amendment to that a report be back here to the council within a month.
Within 2 meetings?
That's correct. Yep. So
which report?
You're taking that motion that was made originally back and you wanted to share this and have our staff chime in and such. I think it would be reasonable to give you 2 meetings to get a response back to the city council about some kind of a plan of what we'd like to do. And that gives the opportunity for staff to chime in, and yet we don't delay it indefinitely down the road. I think that Councilmember Johnson brings up a pretty good point there of give a deadline, let's make this work, and we're not kicking it down the road. We're going to deal with it. We know when we're going to deal with it because it is obviously a very big issue. So I would offer that as a friendly amendment that we have 2 meetings before we get a report back then.
Is the motioner and seconder okay with the friendly amendment?
Very much so.
It's on the amendment.
It's on the amendment.
Amendment, I'm sorry.
I am. Are you waiting for me?
I'm waiting for a signal from both of you. If you're not okay with the friendly amendment, he's going to have to make a motion. He's going to have to make another motion.
I understand.
Right.
The only concern I have is that our staff needs to do this, and we need to do it right. I don't know what their schedule is. If we can get this done in 2, that's fine. If we can't, we'll try. So I'll accept it. I'm still wondering how this item even is being discussed at this point in time. It wasn't on the agenda. It wasn't added to the agenda. We had a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion amendment on the table.
I understand that. We had a motion to adjourn on there, too.
We didn't have a second to the motion to adjourn. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of the amendment, which is to take it to Public Works and to consider it and bring it back within 2 meetings? I think you said a month, but I said the 2 meetings because that would give us that time frame and give us 28 days. Actually, no, it won't,
In that meeting.
because we have a month in between there.
Yeah,
I think 2 meetings would be better than a month.
fine.
Okay. Well, 2 months.
Mayor-
Boy, I really messed that up.
If you say 2 meetings, it would actually be 5 weeks because there's 5
Right.
Mondays this month, so that would.
That's what my
that would
mind
be
just
good
went to.
yes, that would-
When I was looking at you and you pulled out your calendar, I went, oh, shoot, there's five Mondays. Okay, so the 2 meetings would accomplish that. So, Councilmember Nelson,
Are we talking about city council meetings or public works meetings?
city council meetings, I believe. This is what I understood. Yes, city council meetings. Councilmember Meske.
Well, and I would add, I mean, to speak back to what Councilmember Nelson's brought up, is if at that point, there's not a definitive plan, I'm not saying there has to be a completed plan, but that we show that we're progressing towards something is what we're asking. I think that would be fine. I don't think we're looking for a fully articulated plan, but that we are actually going to start moving towards developing a plan would be really nice. So I would say, I think we're all on the same page.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor of the motion, of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to the amendment, that motion does pass. Next, the amendment passes. Next, we have the motion, which is to direct council and staff to work with other elected bodies. I'm paraphrasing here, Mr. Rahman, Councilman Rahman, to bring back that recommendation as the motion just stated within 2 council meetings. Is that amendment okay? I mean, is that paraphrasing okay?
That's fine, Mr. Mayor. I think you have a very good grip on it.
That's,
Additional discussion.
will you repeat the motion? Because the amendment was to take it back to Public Works.
Correct. So what you're doing is you're taking it back to Public Works. Public Works is going to put a plan together within 2 meetings to come back to this
Will you
body.
just have someone repeat the motion?
Mayor, I think the city attorney should comment. I think the amendment takes care of the whole motion, and you don't have to vote again, but.
I guess
Mr. Scott,
I would have actually
I
recommended.
thought we were doing pretty good here about 20 minutes ago, but
I think I would recommend that you have a vote on the motion as amended. Everyone understands what the motion is at this point. It's to refer the original motion to the Public Works Committee and report back within 2 meetings.
so I don't need to do another vote.
I would recommend that you have a vote on that motion, yes.
As amended.
As amended, okay.
As amended, yes.
And Councilmember Rahman, do you want that read?
I think at this point, everybody understands it.
Okay. You were the one that asked to have it read, right? Who asked to have it read? Councilmember Nelson, I'm sorry. Councilmember Nelson, did you want to have the motion reread?
My amendment was to make sure that we look at our information besides scheduling a meeting with other entities.
Correct.
And for us to be prepared for that. So that's not what I was hearing.
City Attorney Scott, could you read that? I think you had captured it fairly well. Could you read that back to us again?
Okay, as amended, I think the motion is essentially to direct the Public Works, Public Safety Committee to consider the motion to have city staff and the city engineer begin to work out a plan to have informal discussions with the county and township representatives regarding stormwater management issues, and to consider information already directed to be brought to the Public Works Committee at that time. It's a little muddled, but I think that's the gist of it.
And I think they'll probably read back or watch the meeting and they'll get it pretty close. Okay, so that's kind of what we're voting on. Okay? Not kind of, that is what we're voting on. Is that better, Councilman Meske? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion does carry.
I'd move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, we're adjourned.